We cannot know how glassblowing was organized in ancient times, but what we do know is that economists like Adam Smith and Karl Marx emphasized the importance of specialization if production rates were to increase in the manual manufacturing, like during the Industrial Revolution. Let us now distinguish between two types of glass producers. A glass studio is a small production unit where one or a few glass artists make exclusive glass artifacts one by one or in short series. A glasswork will have a limited assortment but will produce large series. You can return to a glasswork a few years later to replace your service with the glasses you have smashed. Today there are 5 manual glassworks left in Sweden. Here in Småland we find Bergdala, Skruv, Målerås and Kosta, and halfway to Stockholm is Reimyre. And then there is one fully automatized container glass producer halfway to Gothenburg, Limmared. The specialization during the 1800s was valid for the manual glass industry during the Industrial Revolution, just as it was for any other manual industry. As it comes to glass, will the production rate be influenced by the glass quality and also by the cooling rate, since that determines when the glass becomes too solid to be shaped. And the cooling rate is of course also dependent on the thickness of the glass. So the work in the glass industry was organized in teams with a very strict hierarchy. The gatherers will collect glass from the furnace on the blowpipe. The gaffers will do the first part of the blowing. The masters will supervise and do the final shaping of the object. Stem and foot makers will see to that the stem is straight and has the correct height and thickness, and that the foot is made to measure. The carrying boys will bring the glass to the cooling furnace, and on top of this the wooden mold must be handled and kept wet. The team was paid collectively based on its production rate. The pay was given to the master, who then split it among the team according to a local deal. Similar models for the workers' pay were used from the 1880s all the way until the late 1960s, though the system was modified several times. By the late 1800s was the normal working day 10 hours, but shorter on Saturdays. In the glass industry, the working day usually started at 5 or 6 in the morning when the glass was ready. 1919 saw a new law by which the working days were limited to 8 hours and the working week was limited to 48 hours. This was the situation up until 1958, when a successive shortening of the working time was introduced. To have a reasonable pay, this meant that the production rate had to be high, and it became necessary that the teamwork was tuned to a rhythm so that every man knew exactly where the hot glass was without looking. This all was the source of a strong pride and loyalty among and between the workers. And the rhythm could be fast. At Hovmantorps Nya they produced a brandy glass during the 1960s. The workers' name of that glass was the Flying Chicken. When the team made 200 glasses per hour, there was always one in the air. In Kosta they said they were hunting the fox when the rate approached 200 glasses per hour. At Skruv they produced a design called Allglaset for the consumer cooperative. This glass was produced during the 1950s and 60s. The smallest one could be produced at a rate of 360 per hour, wherefrom 30 were not accepted. That is one glass every 10 seconds. That team used 4 molds and had 4 gaffers. Very common was to separate the workday into shifts so that different models were made. You could, for example, do, say, the Flying Chickens in the morning and pressed glass in the afternoon. Doing it that way, the workers were not worn out so fast, and at the same time the workers maintained a wider competence and flexibility. Here, in Bergdala, where there are only very few workers, you will be able to identify each specific moment in the process. But going to Kosta, to Målerås or to skill, you will face larger teams, and then you have to be very observant to be able to identify exactly who does what and what happens. So when you watch your team at work, you should look especially for two things. First, follow one blank from the gathering in the furnace to the finished glass, and notice how the different operations take place when the glass has the proper temperature. Note how long it takes for each step and how long it takes for the full process. Then count how many glasses are delivered per unit time. In case you are looking at a team of 4 to 6 workers producing wine glasses with a stem and foot, chances are that you will find a rate of 80 to 120 glasses per hour.